But when we started to taste what the county could do with Pinot Noir and with Chardonnay in particular, it was truly special. And so after 2 years of being away and doing some consulting stuff, the opportunity came to come back to Closson Chase. I had a couple of pet projects on my own, growing Pinot, and the idea was to do somewhat what Derek was doing, which is a virtual winery. I had a little small acre and a half out in Milford that I was taking care of, and another half acre in outside of Picton that I was taking care of. Two completely different soils. And if you ever have the opportunity, it's weird because when we drive with my kids, I'll always say, oh my God, look at that rock, or look at that sand, or look at that soil. It's the first thing I look at no matter where I go. And so it was really neat because I thought these places are going to produce different grapes. They're going to produce different fruit. They're going to show a different, they're going to tell a different story from where they come from. And that's what grape growing has become to me, and winemaking in particular. What I do is I deal with Mother Nature, and what she gives me on the grapevine is what I get to put in the glass at the end of the season. It all comes back to the place. You need me to talk closer? Yes. Okay, perfect. I'll step up then. I usually don't have an issue with volume, so it's weird for me. But in 2012, as I was saying, I came back to Closson Chase to do what I had initially moved to the county to do, which was to sell wine and travel the country and promote the wine that we were making. And I loved it. Had a great time doing it. I'm very fortunate. I've been from Vancouver to Newfoundland. I've seen and met great people. I've got to eat great food. But ultimately, the winemaking bug, or that sense of getting back out into the dirt and taking what I thought this place could produce in wine, was what led me back to being a winemaker. So in 2015, when Deborah retired from Closson Chase, I was asked to take on the winemaking role, which you pause for a second and go, wow, this is going to change everything. And then I went home and I talked to Cassandra and I said, so what do you think? And she looked at me and she says, what do I think? Like, what do you mean, what do I think? Well, I mean, it's going to change a lot of things. And she said, is this not what you want to do? And I said, absolutely. She says, well, then it's really easy. You just go and do it, and we'll figure everything out after the fact. And so that was 2015, January. And then the winemaking starts. And then your first vintage as a winemaker on May 23rd, 24th at between 2:30 and 5:30 in the morning, Mother Nature says, yeah, this isn't going to happen. I'm deciding that you're going to have winter for 3 hours. And it got to -5. And we were at shoots. And so I came back from Prince Edward Island to find about 5% of my vineyard had survived. So I went from what would have been probably one of our largest harvests overall into 2006. So we had stepped back almost 9 years in a matter of 3 hours in terms of production. So you suck it up, you move forward, and you do the best you can. But the reason for growing grapes in Prince Edward County is just where we are. This soil is so unique, so distinctive to this place. The way it portrays itself in the glass is like nowhere else in the world. I'm very fortunate as well, is that I have a great grower that I work with in Niagara. So I get to make Chardonnay and Pinot Noir and now Pinot Gris in another year and a half from both places. And the neat thing is wine is one of the few agricultural products that ties to a specific site. And you can taste it right here. So it's kind of funny that terroir is the name, because it really is. And when we talk about terroir as a winemaker, it's not, I mean, we all share the same climate. So if it's hot out on my end of the county, it's going to be hot in South Bay. It's going to be warm or hot at Norm's Place. But where the vines put their feet, which is in that rock, in that clay, in that calcareous limestone, is unique to all of us. because it's not the same. And even at my place, with the 3 vineyards that I have 3 different climates within those vineyards. I have 3 different soil compositions, all with that calcareous limestone, but the mix of sand, the mix of loam differs from place to place. And I think it really speaks to what you can do when you really focus in on what those individual places give you. And not every wine should taste the same. And it shouldn't taste the same across vintage, because every year is different. Mother Nature dictates how much rain she's going to give us. She dictates how much frost she's going to give us, and that ultimately ends up at harvest in September, treating what it is that we have to do as winemakers. So, as a winemaker, I take the approach that I was very fortunate to work with Deborah, who's very, very tactile, very hands-on in terms of listening, breathing, smelling, taking in all the things that the wine has to offer, and less about the number side. And then while I was away, I got to work with a winemaker who was virtually all about the numbers. So I think my winemaking path has allowed me to both have all the intrinsic things with all the numbers-based lab stuff. I think it's really helped me to understand what it is that we do, and how to change those. And I think it's definitely, I don't want to say a job, because it's not a job. I love what I do. So if I didn't have a mortgage and I didn't have to feed my kids, I do this for free, because I just love it so much. And getting all those things to display the soil, and my interpretation of it, because that's ultimately what it comes down to, is unique to every winemaker that you see here, and every winemaker in the world. And that's the fun part. If you travel along Closson Road, you can taste Chardonnay at virtually every winery, and every winery Chardonnay is going to taste completely different. Even though we all had the same growing season, we all have the same soil structure or similar soil structures, in terms that we all have that limestone, we all have the clay. And then ultimately, what it really comes down to is I'm just a steward, and I mentioned this earlier. I have a defined time as a winemaker that I get to make wine. I get to do it once a year, and I figure I have about 20 years to do it in. Although I've been told I can make wine at Closson Chase as long as I want to, there's a certain point at which I think your body runs out. It's for sure here in the county, with the physical labor that it takes. The 7 years of grape growing that I had have taken its toll on my body. The knees don't move as well, the back's a little stiffer, the shoulders are a little sore. So I don't move as fast as I did 10 years ago. But in that meantime, the knowledge of the place has grown dramatically. And I'm very fortunate in that I live right beside the winery. So whatever happens at my house is happening in my fields. So I get a real good indication of what Mother Nature's throwing at me. And when I had dogs, I'd walk the dogs down the road, so you stare at the vines. So there's an intrinsic part that happens in being close to where you are, so that you understand the stresses of the vineyard. So you understand how the plants are growing, so that you see them over the course of their evolution from, right now, shoots, little tiny shoots, all the way up to full-grown canes with these lovely clusters of mature fruit. And then how do we interpret that? How do we take that from the vineyard? How do we process it so that we get all those beautiful aromatics that create Pinot Noir or Chardonnay? How do we not over-manipulate it so that it is true to who we are in terms of a wine-growing area, and in terms of Closson Chase, and my interpretation of that, and how all those things come about. So it's been a fun journey to this point. I figure I've got another 20 plus years to go at it. Hopefully I'll leave it better than I found it, because that's really what it is. I'm just a steward. The name Closson Chase, we can romanticize it as much as we want, and I'll do that in a second. But really, the winery is just named after the 2 intersections at Closson and Chase Road. But if you're familiar with the history of the county and in Ontario during amalgamation when they did it back in the 90s. What they did is every little township had its own concessions. So when you come in to make a larger municipality, not everybody can have concession 1, concession 2, and concession 3. So they changed the names to the predominant family that was on the road at that time. And so Closson Road is the Closson family. They still have a farm right next door to us. And the Chase family, who no longer lives on that road, was on Chase Side Road. And they farmed up on the north side, closer to County Road 1. So the romance is that I literally I inherited the land that they took care of for generations. And so it's my job now to take care of that land and to take care of vines, now going on 14 years, for the next 20. And then hopefully the person who comes in after me says, wow, thank you so much. It's really great. I got to say 20 years, so that'd be like 35-year-old vines, which is nothing for a grapevine. And then they get to take it on, and they get to interpret and express their understanding of what is happening in the soil, in the vineyard, and take it to the next level. And then after them, there'll come somebody else, and that person will hopefully get to look back and say, wow, I'm really glad that person took it, and I can't believe, that guy did all this stuff back when it was brand new. I always tell the story that, we're very lucky at Closson Chase, having been one of the first people to plant here. We did everything wrong 3 times and got it right on the 4th try, and we're still learning on what it is that we have to do. But nowhere else will express itself the way this place will. So I'm going to stop talking because I could probably keep going, but I don't know what it's. I got 6 minutes, and we're supposed to ask if you guys have any questions or if there's anything you want to know. Yeah, go ahead.
In terms of like the marketing or the business side of things,
right?
You guys have made an impact in terms of getting into restaurants and
right.
In Ottawa, for example,
yep.
Even, and that sort of thing. What's that process been like for you?
It's honestly, it's been a struggle. Ontario wine is just starting to come into its own. I mean, when I think of almost 20 years ago, when we started going to Niagara, there were 29 wineries in the VQA booklet. There were 29, right? I mean, we have 100 and I think between North Shore Lake Erie, Niagara Peninsula, and us, there's like 200. I mean, that's dramatic. That's 600% gain in 20 years. And a lot of the wine was not good. I mean, completely understand it. But as technologies come and there's all the other things that come with understanding wine evolve, it makes it easier. Because now you can say, look, we can make good wine, and it's right next door. Ottawa, for example, as a market has been interesting because we're only 3 hours away. And right across from Ottawa is Gatineau, and the French market drinks wine. It's part of their culture. Wine is not part of the culture in Ontario. I didn't drink wine as a kid. At Christmas, maybe Thanksgiving, never at birthdays. But when we did drink wine, it was German, it was off dry, it was Black Tower, it was Blue Nun, and on really special occasions, my dad would splurge and we'd drink Peace Porter, right? And through the sommelier program, and I'm reading all about this, and I'm like, oh, Michaelsburg Peace Porter. I look it up. If anybody knows Germanic wine, that's a huge vineyard. It's massive, and it takes in a whole stretch of land like 1.5 kilometers long. So here I was thinking I was drinking this specific place and not really knowing it, to come out that what I was drinking was just a step above what was Blue Nun and Black Tower back then. But wine's part of my table now, right? So my kids grow up with wine on the table. Is that a good thing? I don't know. I hope so. I mean, I've always told my kids to run from the wine industry. Hopefully one will be a vet and one will be an engineer, because this is a lot of work. But the Ottawa market has really embraced us, and it's been they've come to understand who we are and what we do, and they've embraced it, and they've taken it on. And the food culture, when I started back in 2006 selling wine in Ottawa, because that's what you do. When the county started, you had to multitask. You couldn't just be the assistant winemaker. You couldn't just be the assistant vineyard manager. You had to be the assistant vineyard manager, the assistant winemaker, sales, events, promotions, cook the food, serve the food. That's what we did, because that's what it was. And as the business has grown and our vineyards have grown and the job has become more complex, you don't have the time to spread yourself like that, right? And I honestly don't know if I could anymore. But I love the Ottawa market. I have a lot of friends up there. I know our place in the market. We're not most people's everyday wine. I wish we could be, but we can't. From a business standpoint, we can't be there to continue to make the quality of wine that we make. But I've made a lot of friends, and I think, I've never been shell shocked, but with the buildup of the Food Network and how we view food and chefs, it's kind of cool. Next week I'm going to see Michael Smith, right? I'm doing opening weekend next weekend at the Inn of Bay Fortune. I remember as a teenager watching him as the inn chef and thinking, wouldn't that be cool to go there someday and meet that guy? I'm doing it. And it's this job. It's this that's allowed me to do that. And so you get to meet some of these people, and they're all human, right? No matter what you want to think, they all, as I say, we all go to the bathroom the same way, and we all eat food. And so if those two things are common, then why not embrace it and take it to the next level? And I think that's what it is. And it's a fun thing. It's a fun job. It really is. So, anything else? Everybody else is good? No questions? If you know my wines, just quickly, I'll do a little Closson Chase push here. I really hope you give us a chance to come try us. If you've had Pinots in the past, but they haven't been your favorite, come give us a new try. If you're ever in the neighborhood and I'm around, come tap me on the shoulder and say, hey, come, let's go see all your toys. That's what I always say. And we'll happily do those things. It's a unique area in that we're all small enough that we're almost always around. I was in Niagara the other day and I drove past 20 Bs and I was looking at the cars on the staff side of the parking lot and went, holy crap, there's more cars in that parking lot now when it's not main tourist season than there's in tourist season at my winery. So it's we're small scale. We'll still farm. Largest winery here is probably Sandbanks in terms of production, and then everybody else falls down from there. And in 2006, when there were just 9 of us, and even in 2012 when there was 30 of us, I said to somebody, said, oh my God, you have so many wineries. And I said, yeah, but let's put that in context. If you take everybody's production and you add all those numbers together, and even to this day, and this was before they expanded, we don't equal Henry of Pelham. Right? One family-run winery in Niagara, the whole county in terms of production doesn't get there. So that it puts it into a bigger scheme of things, right? So we're a 5,000 case winery, focusing on Chard and Pinot, and a planted Pinot Gris, because I think it does really well here. That's a whole other story. So come on to the winery, we can taste the wine and we can talk about that. But if you have some time, please don't hesitate to stop by. Got lots of stuff going on. Check the website. You'll get on the email list. I always tell people this and they never believe me, but when I come back to them and say, oh, did you get the email? They're like, no, I didn't sign up. We do some real cool things, and not always do they cost money, but they're really nice experiences. So if you get a chance, come visit, come sit in the garden, come relax. We don't do food. We don't do a lot of other things. We're there to grow wine, or grow grapes and make wine. So come and sit and relax and listen to nothing. Listen to the wind blowing the trees and the grapevines in front of you. Not much to see this time of year, I always encourage people to come in September because to me that's when I like being in the vineyard and being around to see the colors change and knowing that in 3 weeks we're going, and that's what it is. And everybody wants to come and play in the winery. Come on, I'll take free labor any day. So thanks, guys. Thanks for coming. Thanks for sitting down. Appreciate it.